as we go. Hi, everyone. So excited to be here again. It's going to be a terrific show because we've got some terrific people with us. We've got Kelly today, we've got Dave today, and we've got Jason certainly following us. Actually, today's topic is live streaming, and we'll have to put a little segment into the surprises and fun that live streaming can bring on a spontaneous nature. So I'll start it with Kelly. Kelly, welcome. So good to have you, and love to hear a little bit about any update and initial thoughts on live streaming.
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are tuning in from. And yeah, live stream. We got a taste of it this morning. We legit just got on like 3 seconds before we went live. And I kind of want to start with, I think what it reminded me of is, oh my gosh, if this would have happened on my first live stream, it probably would have freaked me out. But I think live streaming, part of it, and we talked about this before, is it allows us to accept ourselves for who we are. Go with the flow. Like, stuff happens, and nobody expects perfection. And I think it's endearing when people see real life, because it makes them think, gosh, I guess I could do it too, because it's not perfect. Man, we have things go awry all the time. But you just have to figure out, how to roll with the punches. I think we were 3 or 4 links in before it happened, but it happened nonetheless. And everybody showed up still, smiling and unstressed, which I think, again, if this would have been my first time, second, third, fourth, maybe even fifth, 15th, it would have freaked me out, being like, oh my God, we're supposed to be live right now. So I think there's a beauty in it of accepting just life and the way that it is, and learning to roll with it. And it is all about how we react to things. So I think I'll leave it there to start with before we get into this one.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? And before I switch it over to Dave, I think to Kelly's point, you just never know, but if you've done this enough, you know how to pivot to what the next redundant system is. And so that, the more you do it, the more you learn how to do it and how to do it when it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So with that said, Dave, why don't you share a little bit and your initial thoughts on live streaming?
Yeah, hey everybody! It's great to be here with a great group of people again. I always love this hour. Nothing much new going on here. Just enjoying life and thinking about what Kelly just said. It's just a great metaphor for life in general. Of things happen, as you pointed out, Don. We got to pivot. We got to do that every day of our lives. Just last night with my daughter, talking about things that are going on before she gets ready for school. Okay, well, live streaming is a pivot point. Sometimes life is a pivot point. She's living with that too. My first thoughts when I saw the title of the live stream was, the opportunities that live streaming presents. And the sharing of, as you pointed out, Kelly, it's a connection with the human emotion and life as it is, as we've discussed, but also just a growth methodology or growth means for people to express themselves. Think about how you were when you first, like I've mentioned here before, when I first came on, just nervous, sweaty, the chair was different. It was a little bit, hotter back, but now we can talk and I don't have a second thought about, am I going to look like a fool? Am I going to say something bad? It's just a natural conversation. And the growth that we get out of these events each week is I don't want to say immeasurable, but it's noticeable, I think, on my part. I really have appreciated what live stream has done for me and to help me learn about others and other things that are going on for connection with people.
That's so valuable because you tend to think about the audience when you first get going. Yeah. And then you start to gravitate to the people you're with on the show. Yeah. And then you come back to yourself, and then you are yourself in a sense. So, I think that has the value is really what thoughts do you generate through other people's answers and insights that you can take with you, because it's really the takeaways, like Dave said, the little things over time can make a difference. So Jason, glad to have you. Sorry about the little inconvenience, but if it wasn't for that, it wouldn't be live streaming.
Exactly. Can you hear me okay? I'm here. We're doing our radio check right now. Yeah, as Dave said, great to join you. This is an amazing group, and I love to be here. I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on the life part of it, to piggyback on what Kelly was saying. The lesson that I see here is that, if something went wrong and we were trying to get in, and we could have easily said, "Oh, Don, what did Don do wrong? And he needs to fix it." But you're right. But I stepped out and said, "What part of this do I own?" So I cleared my cache of cookies. I refreshed my browser. I did, everything I could do. What part do I own in this? What can I do to make this better? And I think that's a huge lesson too, as far as live streaming as well. Like as things happen, I share a quick story. I was a trainer in one of my companies that I worked for in the past, and one of my very first classes, I always worked with a partner, so very similar to this, and it was multimedia. So we had videos and handouts, and we did live instruction. And one of the very first video series that I had to play in the section that I was teaching, because we would switch off, the DVD didn't work. It just died. And so it's very set up, because you're doing 2 days work in a day and a half. And so the time is very strict. And so me and my partner came up and said, "You take the class, I'll work on this." And he started trying to fix the DVD. I went ahead and kept teaching, and it just was very flawless. The class didn't miss anything, and you just go. And that's the thing that we're talking about with live stream, is you build that muscle. You learn that you have to go on the fly, and that's something that is very important. That's what I love about live stream too. To Dave's point, is it allows you to be yourself more and get that great connection.
Absolutely. I think we're making all really good points. And, the key is doing, like you mentioned, Jason, all you know how to do, all you can do, and that's all you're expected to do. Right? And you learn from it. It's the experience. There's not one word or one sentence that's going to come out of here that's going to say, maybe it does, but most of it is you're building on skill set. You're building on mindset. And you're also building on how to deal with others, how to be generous to others. It's really a factor of just everyday life, what we do here. And the other part is to enjoy it for whatever it is, right? It's, you're not supposed to say, how did I get ahead today? It's like, what did I learn today that will allow me to get ahead in the future? So Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, so many good things, and it's hard for me not to go back to the whole thing of, I love that you brought in the corporate experience, because live streaming is very similar to that. It reminds me a lot of my corporate career with folks that would do presentations. And even to add that into a story of my own, when I remember one of the very first presentations I did at university, go Devils, was, in front of your peers. And there's nothing that is more terrifying than doing, and you had to dress professional, and it was like a full-on presentation, pitching whatever it was that we were pitching. And I felt super great about my content, and I knew it in and out, and I felt great about it. And of course I had I was sweating. I mean, just like Dave was saying, like my heart was racing through my chest, but I knew the content, so I felt confident. One of my poster boards fell off the easel as I was doing the presentation, and I went like, oh, and, and bent over and got it up, and I reacted to it. And I remember that was the only critique that the teacher gave me, because he said, you did an incredible job, blah, blah, blah. However, when those things happen, you've got to act like nothing happened. Bringing attention to it is what makes others draw attention to it. If you would have just, kind of bent over and continued on, no one would have made notice of it. And I think that's 100% what live streaming does, and what I used to do when training sales folks to give presentations. Don't think about it as memorizing the content. Know the content, know how to present it. Because if you lose your space and you're memorizing and trying to repeat something verbatim, that messes you up all the way. And you've got to get to a place where you feel comfortable with it and be able to roll with it. because people feel that. People feel the script. And I talk about that all the time with the pitch slap. People can't stand it. They recognize it. It's so obvious and it's so inauthentic, and people just don't like that. And the analogy I use a lot is, think about it as if you're sitting across from someone at a desk. If you were to lunge at them, what would they do? Aggressively. They're going to pull away. Well, that's what a pitch slap does. And any type of inauthenticity, even if somebody can't verbalize it, they feel that and they will tend to pull away. And I think the beauty of live stream is about just being able to be you and accepting it for, whoops, I just made a mistake. I just forgot something. I was in mid-thought and I can't remember what I was talking about. Do y'all remember what I was talking about? And it's being present. And I think, I don't remember which one of y'all said this, because I think you all sort of touched on it in one way or another, is at first it's all about, oh God, what's the audience going to think? And what are they going to say? And what if I say something wrong? And then it's about the people that you're sitting here with. But then ultimately it becomes about just being present. What is it that I'm listening? Because all of us know the word before we come on, and we've been doing it enough. But we don't, we may look up a definition or have an idea of something that we want to bring. But usually it steers so far away from what we could have originally thought anyways, that I think all of us now just show up kind of with the excitement of, I wonder where this is going to go today.
Yes.
It is a humbling experience, but
Yes.
I think that's what teaches us all not to be too far ahead of whoever we're with, right? It's the person who's, part of the group that's accepted in the group, and whatever they do is okay. It's the ones who put themselves up to a higher bar and then fall down in a sense. And there's not a lot of compassion that there would. The other way, it's all perspective. I look at this as having a great conversation with Jason, Dave, and Kelly. We just happen to be opening it up for anybody who wants to listen in or see it. But at that level, it should be good enough. And once you are comfortable, one last thing before I switch it over to Dave, is it's the situations you've been through over and over again that make it less challenging, right? Some of the most dangerous jobs, if you're a real pro at it, know your stuff, been around the block a couple times, it's just what you do.
Yeah.
But the first person who does it and never did it is carrying all these fears from wherever into it, and then it projects out into the audience or to others. And it's also how fair and how generous are you to others, so that they'll be just as generous to you when the opportunity. So givers do get. Whatever you give could be good or bad, is what you can expect to get in return. So Dave.
Yeah, I think I'll just build on a little bit of what Kelly said is, the planning that goes into these things. I don't see what you've done in the background, Don, to get this all set up. Like we had the issue with the link, okay, how do we get in? That's a lot of planning that goes into this. From my side, I'll take from what you were saying, Kelly, is I kind of made a face when you said we all look up the word, we're all ready and prepared. And I will admit that the first 5 or 6 of these I did with Don, I was looking up the word and I was trying to figure it out. And then I recognized, okay, talking to Don and the way we've had the communication go over the last year, I'd rather come in and be surprised. There's a couple of times where I've said, I don't know what the word is. Oh my God, what am I going to do? And then, I've learned from Jason, okay, I'm sneaking over and I'm looking on my other screen and doing a definition or a quote search. And I found that made it more relaxed for me to come into this and go, okay, I'm not stressed about these are the points I have to make. And when we do public speaking, as you pointed out, in the military, we plan and we rehearse our scenarios and we go forward so that when we're there, it's perfect. We're not going to mess it up, and we have contingency plans ready to go. There was really some inauthenticity to that when we try to connect, which is what this is trying to do. We're trying to connect with each other and whoever's watching. So, for example, I'll throw in a story of my own. Just what was it, a week and a half ago, Don, where I was on with your brother-in-law, Bill, talking about drones, and then Don fell off. Okay, well, we hadn't planned for that. And to his credit, Bill, just the first time ever doing a broadcast like this, goes, well, we've lost Don, but let's keep going. And he just rolled right into it. Yeah. And like you, Kelly, if that had happened the first time I was on, I don't know how to, I don't know how to
oh, look, I lost my connection. Whoops.
I'm sorry?
I said it would have been like, whoops, I lost my connection too.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, there's two elements that we're talking about here. There's the planning and the effort that goes in behind on Don's part, on our part, in the beginning, and then it gets to be a solid pattern of, oh, we're just going to cut and paste, and we know what to do because we've got a checklist. And then the second piece is the authenticity of how do we interact, you know. Do we raise our hands? Do we just interrupt? And I know I'm guilty of both, but you know, it's a growth process for everybody going through this that I think more people taking advantage of it would learn more about themselves, not just from a pitch class, as you say, Kelly, is learning about, you know, the process of how this all comes about.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Jason?
You know, talking about learning life lessons and live stream will teach you lessons quickly, and it's up to you whether you want to listen or not. And kind of one thing I want to share. I was thinking about this morning because I was going to get some water. I usually have tea at this time, but it's a little earlier for me. So I just got some water, and I was thinking, should I get some ice because it's kind of already warm here? And it reminded me of my very first podcast a couple years ago. Now, thankfully, it was audio only. It wasn't video as well. And it was a lot of learned lessons. And it was an amazing person. She's a chiropractor locally, and she works with veterans and people with TBI. And so it was a huge opportunity. So it was a nighttime event. And I think it was during the warmer times. And so I had something to drink, and I had a big glass, and I had a bunch of ice in it, and was enjoying my drink, and I was talking, and my wife was in the other room listening, and I was drinking. And my wife, I could see her through my door, through my peripheral vision, pops in, and she's like, "What's that noise?" The ice, she could hear the ice in my cup. I was like, oopsies. I didn't say it, but I didn't say anything. You know, like we talked about, you roll with the punches. I set my drink down, and we went forward. So you can learn lessons externally. But the point I'm getting to, my very long point that I'm getting to, is you could also learn from other people's mistakes and other people's knowledge. So I know the three of you are in a group with a bunch of folks that are amazing people. I haven't joined yet. I'm still trying to figure my stuff out. But I respect what you guys do because you know, it's huge to learn. You know, like Dawn has this group, and you all feed into this group, and that's a huge point too of live stream, is that community. And so I think that's the point I'd like to bring up, is live stream builds community, whether it's learning from other people or it's all that. It's learning from other people, whichever way you look at it.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I'm so glad you brought that up, Jason, because it brings me back to last week's collaboration group Zoom meeting. And we talk about a lot of stuff. Again, it's like this show. There's nothing really planned or formatted. It's really based on fairness to what is everybody thinking, what is everybody questioning, what is everybody sharing or doing. And actually, Kelly came up with the all-star element of a profile. And I just noticed I became an all-star. And Harvey was on the call, and Harvey is trying to be everything, right? Number one franchise voice, number one franchise show, and I just love the way he's just not stopping. You know, he's like just accelerating through everything. And he said, I don't have an all-star, right? And then that followed after the meeting to the messages. And Harvey said, hey, what I learned is I didn't have my education down, and I didn't have any recommendations. So people send me some recommendations. And I think me and Kelly and whoever, we all kind of chipped in. And it came back like 10 minutes later, I got my all-star badge. And if it wasn't for that comment, it might have been months or never, because LinkedIn doesn't give you a handbook. It doesn't tell you, well, here's where you are, here's what you need to do, here's how you're going to get there. You got to figure it out for yourself. And that's hard, and it takes a long time. When you can get 7 other people who have maybe a facet or a nuance to what you're saying, and that's the piece of the puzzle you're missing, it changes everything. And the other thing is, you learn everybody is like everybody at a certain point. The fears you have, other people have, maybe in different areas, different situations. But I've recognized when you have fear, it's an issue within yourself. It's not an issue with what you're dealing with. And you have to go inside, but you also have to understand there's fun involved, there's joy involved. And it's not how good are you, it's how healthy are you in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people go to golf for the first time and they're just out there having fun in the sun, hitting the ball around, not even keeping score. And other people are throwing their clubs in the lake and screaming and yelling, and it's not a game anymore. And I think you got to be good to yourself and other people. But you're right, the meetings bring everybody together. You know, there's a saying, when you're up, the meetings need you. When you're down, you need the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody can play that role. And you're not alone. It's the loneliness. You know, if you're on a show with 6 other people around a table, it's a lot easier if you're one person in front of the whole world. And you find out that everybody kind of loves you more than you think, you know, cares a little bit more, even though they may never had that time to share that. And then here we got some lovely people. Dennis, mine skills are good to mine, and fine. Thanks for finding the show. And I'll tell you really quick what happened. You schedule a show through Restream. It gets listed on YouTube and LinkedIn. Those are the channels I use. And then they give you a link, and you send that link, and that gets everybody in. Well, for some reason, I kept sending the same link they gave me. It didn't work. So what you could do, if you don't want to schedule a Restream and something in advance, you can just go to Restream and go live. And I did that for quite a while. It has the same link every time on your first one live. When you go beyond that screen, now you're into where Restream was. So it's the second screen. So really getting out of the second screen, just going with the first stream is a sure thing. But then you wonder, when is everybody going to see you? Right. So anyways, there's complication to simplicity and simplicity to complication. With that said, I'll turn it over to Kelly. Well, I should mention Dennis one more time. He's got another comment. Agree, be present is a present for you and others you're with. And you know, the audience kind of rallies you and moves you forward. Yeah. Carrie was trying to find it, finally got through YouTube. The math teacher asked why the student had a lemon pie in class. He said, trying to squeeze the results for pie. Well, that's an interesting one. Dennis said you were drinking, your wife was thinking. Agree, we have to learn from other mistakes because we don't live long enough to make them all for ourselves. Good point, Dennis. And one more. Agree, is fear we have within ourselves, but meet and treat others to learn, for sure.
Yeah, so many good things there. And yes, and I think people who aren't familiar with Restream and all that stuff are probably going, what was Don just talking about?
But that's why they need to join the cohort or get on his link on consulting and connect with him.
Exactly. And I do encourage anybody who's thinking about doing a Restream or doing a live stream should do one and should reach out to somebody who's done it, whether it's us or someone else, for that exact reason. Why put yourself through the stress of having to figure it out on your own when somebody can speed up through every single platform has its quirks and its hiccups. But if you talk to somebody who uses it, they can talk you through those so you can help avoid it or know what the fixes are, because no platform is perfect and everybody has their preference for a certain reason. One that I've heard about recently and I've been looking into is Riverside, actually, because they give titles after you do the recording. It'll give you recommendations for titles. It will do the transcripts and it does excerpts. I think it does like 10, and depending on your level of subscription. And I have reached out to them after speaking to someone, my brother's neighbor, while I was in San Diego, found out that she does podcasting. I was like, no way, me too. And of course, Wheelchairs for Warriors came up. Her husband's a firefighter. Like, it was just all this thing. And she uses Riverside. So I looked into it, and I, of course, asked Riverside, hey, do you by chance do any discounts for nonprofits? And I gave them, Wheelchairs for Warriors, and they emailed me back within 40 minutes. Like, it was within the hour, and said, oh my gosh, love what you guys are doing at Wheelchairs for Warriors. We're, more than happy to offer a discount. Here's a discount code when you guys decide. And it was a 20% off. And I of course, right away was like, all right, well, I like you already for your customer service because you responded quickly and it was customized to my question. They clearly had gone to our website and read, because it wasn't like they didn't just fill in anything, because my form had my name and my email, didn't have, Wheelchairs for Warriors information and mission. But in any event, it all depends on what you're trying to do. What are you trying to accomplish with your live stream? Some people don't need any of that stuff. For me, knowing that I was doing excerpts afterwards and winning shorts, I was like, God, I love the idea of one-stop shop. Because other platforms that we've tried, I think Opus is one. I love how Opus looks. They do the excerpts of videos, and I think it does like 10, and again, depending on your subscription, and then it rates them, which is pretty cool. But what I found for me, for some of the shows that I did, I was just sort of like, this didn't pull the highlight that I wanted. But again, it pulled out some great stuff. I love how it looks on social media. So it just depends on what you're looking for, which I do agree, which is why you need to talk to folks who do it, because most of us who have been doing it for a period of time either have been guests on other shows with different platforms, have talked to other people who've used different platforms, have tried them out behind the scenes with free subscriptions. We've all been doing stuff and pull on or take on information from other folks. Because as big of a platform as this is, I feel like the live stream community is kind of a small community. You get to know others, and truthfully, I will say I have found everyone I've ever reached out to be like, hey, how did you do that? Or what are you using to do that? That everyone is so willing to help, that it's not a matter of, well, you can pay $9.95 to join my private group in order to get info, that everyone's willing to help, which I think is the beauty of this platform. And I think people are afraid of that sometimes, in the sense of, well, I don't know this person. I live by the adage of, the worst thing that's going to happen is somebody's going to say no. I mean, I will, I even called out Elon Musk on his thing the other day, because I'm like, I want Wheelchairs for Warriors to get some recognition in this stream. What's the worst thing that can happen? Nothing. I mean, so why not just give it a whirl and ask people stuff? I message people, and again, because I have no shame, because the worst that's going to happen is they'll never answer me. But guess what? Sometimes people do answer me, and I'm shocked and by what they're willing, to do and help with. So I'll leave it there, because you never know unless you try.
That's so important, and I think you're right. If you don't ask, you won't find. And if people don't want to share, that's pre-qualifying out for you, right? So it's like, okay, well, I'll just cross them off the list. There's a saying that usually works with sorting is, some will, some won't, so what? That's just the way it always is, and that's the way it always will be. Dave?
Yeah, just the word that keeps coming back in my mind is community and connection. The words keep coming back are community and connection. And live streaming is something that is so simple to, like you said, Kelly, it's a small community, to the sense of there's a couple billion, or you've mentioned the number several times over the year, Don, is a billion people on LinkedIn. But how many live streams, of the percentage of that is very small? You're absolutely right. But it is so easy to just hop on for a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, Don, you had Karl on from our group, and I just had 15 minutes. I was like, oh, it's 11:30. Let me jump on and I'll listen to a little bit. And I happened to catch, hey, there's a good point that I just met with an investor mentor yesterday, and I made a comment. And it's a community where we can all interact and support each other very easily. And and have that ability, that confidence to say, well, I've met them before, electronically on here. I'm going to support them. I'm going to have a connection with them, something beyond a post and a comment, which is very impersonal. But because we've had these conversations, we can connect on a deeper level. And, I should point out, I mean, we missed the pre-show where we meet 5 minutes before, but there have been times we've had our hour of power, and then Kelly and I and Jason and I, Don and I individually or as a group, 30 to 40 to an hour afterwards, we're still chatting. there's just a sense of connection, which I think, not to get beyond the live stream, but is missing in our culture today.
Yeah.
It's very, I'm going to shoot my post, I'm going to shoot my comment, and then fry and forget, and then go, well, I'm connected with them. They're my friend. It's okay. But that's not touching. There's no deeper relationship. And then you get into a fight with somebody on political or personal level, and you're like, you don't even know them. What are you talking about? So I'll finish this connection piece with, it was very fortunate Tuesday. There's a gentleman on LinkedIn, Ray Cashcare. He's very in your face, motivational speaker for kids. I didn't realize, I knew he was in the Hampton Roads area here, and I took my daughter to the sports night for all the sports events and meet the coaches and policies. And I look over and I'm like, that's Ray Cashcare. My daughter's like, I don't care. Looking over at him, I'm like, okay. I stopped looking, and then as soon as that meeting was over, I went over and I introduced myself. I said, Ray, you don't know who the heck I am. He's got 50,000 followers, whatever it is. I said, I follow you on LinkedIn, and I'd feel remiss if our kids are in the same school and I didn't come over and say hello. Okay, it sparked a conversation. Great. But it's that connection.
Yeah.
And live streaming builds that first level of connection that you can then grow upon. And that's my main point.
Well, I mean, you make a great point as far as community, because I think the key is, and it used to be like that, is neighborhoods were open to everybody in the neighborhood, right? Any kid could go to anybody's house and say, I have an issue or something, and they would let you in or take care of you or call somebody for you. And, what's fascinating about the group, because it's almost been a year that the group meetings have been taking place, is, Harvey says, I'm checking this out. As soon as I figure it out, I'm going to let everybody know what it is, or I'm going to make it available for everybody. And it reminds me of either NASCAR, where you're drafting off of somebody, and getting the benefit of them being in front of you, or even when birds fly in flocks or whatever you want to call it, there's always a lead bird who will fly and then fall back to the back, and a new bird will come and take its place. And it just supports the whole group by being together in that formation, as opposed, and I know Jason always says, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with a group. There's something to belonging, and there's something to being so thoughtful to others that it's, hey, I can't wait for Harvey to get super successful because he works hard. He deserves it. And it puts you in a position where, hey, someone's got to go first. I want to do everything I can to make them as successful, because they're going to come back and help me become more successful. And then everybody can ratchet up together. And if you're 1 billion people strong, let's say on LinkedIn, there's only 10,000 newsletters out of 1 billion. And it's a lot easier to do a newsletter than a live stream. So reduce that to maybe 1,000. And I know me and Kelly and Harvey have been to so many live streams, and they're really in the elementary level. They're into themselves, they're into selling, they're into screaming or whatever, until they mature and they graduate to being quality people on a live stream. And I've had some guests that are phenomenally successful, and they love our format because it makes them feel comfortable. They're not as motivated to say, how much success can I get here, but how do I take some of these things and bring it to my show? So, Jason.
Yeah, great points. Community connection, growth, whatever. The word that comes to mind based on all that is synergy. 1 + 1 is not 2, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever you can put together, and that's the key, I think, is that synergy. I was thinking about, remember in school, whatever level of school you went through, whether it was, your master's or just through the high school, the difference of having a speaker in front of you and the difference of between when they rolled out that TV screen. Some of us older ones know they rolled that big old thing that they would drag in. Someone, the janitor or whatever, would drag it in for them, and you put the video in, and it was a different feeling. Your learning was different, and your engagement was different. And that's the word I'm looking for, is engagement. And that's the thing about restreaming, or about what we're doing here in this live, is that engagement. And people can make comments.
Jason, some of us remember the old projectors too.
Yes.
I was going to say that.
I was an AV nerd, so yes, I was the one splicing films together in high school, and I enjoyed that. But yeah, so those different modalities, and how you reacted to that is different, and that's what this is. I've seen, I think we're all lifelong learners, and we watch a lot of different things, and we engage with a lot of things, and I see these videos put out by companies that are meant to be formatted like this, but they're scripted, and it just drips with inauthenticity. I can't say the word. It just doesn't seem authentic.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I see what you're doing. Thanks, Bob. That's a great point. I'm gonna have to say, and you're like, whoa, Max Headroom, for the older ones that remember Max Headroom. It's not the same. And so I kind of went long, but I just wanted to say that about it. That's the joy of me, for me, for doing what we do and being live, is that interaction, that connection, and growing and building off of each other.
Yeah, that's so important, because not only do you bring people forward, but you can bring people back, like Headroom, right? I mean, something that you always had in your mind, but it took someone to throw it out there to say it just came back to life in my head. Right. And maybe some of those memories, because it's those little things that kind of open something up that was almost open, or you needed to review, or you just had fun doing it. And everybody's like, it's like a quartet, right? Everybody's in harmony. Everybody's looking to promote and support what everybody's doing. So it just is, to me, it's the best part of my day, is starting out like this and having a quality conversation, and it was so easy, because traditionally you would be like 4 people knock at your door and they come in for coffee for an hour, and then they go home after a nice conversation. It's like, boy, I wish I had another one of those today. Kelly.
Yeah, so many great things. Max Headroom. Oh my God, that's a great name for a live stream, by the way. You're welcome, audience. And then just the nostalgia of you saying that, because it's like, oh my gosh, that is so funny, and so great all at the same time. But to go off of what you all just said, it is completely about the community connection and engagement. I feel that live streaming, I would never, if live streaming didn't exist and we were just commenting or connecting on LinkedIn and messaging each other or commenting on each other's content, we wouldn't have the friendships that we have. Like, I feel like I don't want to say it speeds things up, but it puts things, I think, in a more human nature manner, in the sense of, as humans, we desire connection. I get bored with certain things online. It's like, I'm not in a relationship with people online, in the sense of, I don't know who you are. My interpretation of your comment is my perception. I have no idea what your intent was. A majority of the time, most of the time we can see or feel like, oh, that came from a place of love. How nice. And then you occasionally get the one that you're like, don't understand that one. So I'm just going to move on. But I think it speeds up the connection that we all crave. And I feel, as a person, for me, what it has brought to my life is to go back, and I think, Jason, you probably started with this, is immeasurable. I have relationships with people all over the country, and goodness, all over the world, because Harvey is across the pond, and I've got another gal that's in Malaysia, that are just close people in my life that I never would have had the opportunity if it weren't for this platform, this with live streaming. And it does help you connect. And I do find, I just had a call with someone yesterday, a very young veteran who has started his own business, a cigar business that gives a percentage of proceeds to PTS because he suffers badly, and part of his battalion are no longer here for a multitude of reasons, which is just gut wrenching for so many reasons. But we had this very long conversation, incredible young man. And I said, hey, I've got some folks I want to connect you with, right away. And I said, and I'm sure I'll think of more. And he was, just like, oh, thank you so much. And I said, and do understand. And he's like, well, what? He kind of had that hesitation of like, well, what do I need to do? And it's like, you don't need to do anything. Like, these are people you need to know. And I feel like that's what we should all be doing. And it does go back to the whole thing of community and supporting community. Well, we're not in competition with all these people. I'm not in competition with a veteran that is trying to start his own business and helping support PTS. Am I a mental health warrior? Heck yeah. I want to bring light to all of that. Are you, Jason? Heck yeah. Are you, Dave? Yes. Don? Yes. But we all have our own lane and our own space. And why wouldn't we want all of us to rise? And it does go to that whole thing. And I don't know how it goes exactly about all ships rise with the tide. But that's the beauty of live streaming that I have found. All the people that I have met and are truly my friends offline, we all can't wait to help each other and like seriously cheer each other, and are also there when like, ooh, you're having a down day. What can I do? I'm there for you to help you, support you, walk you through it. And like you said, Dawn, sometimes, and that's how we started this show to begin with, was just that there was no word, there was no anything. We were just showing up and truly kind of sat and wondered on an occasion, like, why are people from all over the world showing up every morning? And it came down to the whole thing of, because love, community is about support and feeling safe, but it is ultimately about love. And that is an international language that everybody is looking for, and they're drawn to it. It doesn't need to be labeled. It doesn't need to have a title. It just needs to have and that is, I think, what comes from live stream as opposed to any videos that are produced. I think there's a place for production. Don't get me wrong. But you're right, Jason. Like, sometimes they go too far, and it's like, I'm feeling nothing except like repelled from the garbage that you're putting on the screen. Because it is about the feeling, and that is, even to take it into a marketing standpoint, people aren't buying from your facts. They're buying by every buying decision we make is based on an emotion. How did it make me feel? And what draws me to purchase? It has nothing to do with how great you are, how great your product is, how innovative it is. It's none of those things. It's how it makes the person feel. And I feel like that's what live stream does for others, is people can feel who you are through a screen. Like you said, Jason, and I was in my head trying to say inauthenticity. It wasn't coming out right either, so I didn't interject, but here, I still it.
Thank you.
Now I feel accomplished, so I'll toss it.
Well, it's so gratifying to hear Kelly and see how Kelly's evolved and changed for the better. And it was always there, but not everybody has access. Not everybody has opportunity. Everybody kind of gets graded on a different scale, right? Based on looks, based on age, based on situation. But when you get the keys to your own gate, and now you can invite people in, you're not sitting at the gate waiting for someone to grant you permission. And the other element of it is that you find out who isn't going to work on a show.
Right.
You find out what it takes, and it doesn't take skill. It takes not only a little bit of desire, but a lot of time and hard work to want to commit to it. Mm-hmm. And I think once you can figure out, hey, this is the profile that works, because I know me and Kelly have had famous people and people that you would look at and be in awe of, but they're never going to be part of a group because they're either too far away from it or don't feel that it's necessary. But what it says is everybody can do it. Everybody could make it, and if you want more, do more. I was in a lecture, and the guy said, if you want to build the biggest building in town, you have two ways to go. You can knock every building around you down, or you can just keep building bigger, right? And elevate above it. And if you look at somebody and say they're doing more, well, what are they doing to get more? They're not just hanging out, they're working it. They're doing things. And what they do allows you to do more, because it's a natural tendency to say, well, if Joan can do that, I should be able to do it. And nothing against Joan, and it's an imaginary person, but they inspire you because they go first, and all of a sudden it's like they did it. And I'm sitting here at the dock when I could be, swimming. Dave.
I don't even know where to begin. I've got a couple of notes I wrote here during Kelly, and just taking what you said, Don, is just it's inspiring. There's so many words, but my first thoughts, I'll go back to my notes here, is Kelly, you brought up the context, the perception of a comment, and what live streaming does for us is it gives us depth beyond a statement. Because I can read, if I were to take any comment and just put it on a blank whiteboard that I have here in my office and go, what does that mean? I could show it to 100 people and get 1,000 different, ideas from what that comment means. By being able to go into, this is what I said, just my 2-second response, and then build upon it, because we're having a conversation, I can get deeper into a meaning behind it. I can take it I can make a snide comment, but because we know each other a little deeper, it's really a loving comment. It's just, the girls, are nice to each other, boys are mean to each other, kind of love comments kind of thing. But we evolve and we build the relationship beyond that. And it really is, it's very, heartening to see the community, the way that we've built it. Because Don, you pointed out, it used to be when you did these shows, it was a new person every show, or every couple of weeks you'd have the same person back. And what have you done? You've said, okay, I've got this pool of people, to your point just recently, but they don't really fit my message. So I'm gonna tweak the group, and now we're down to 5 or 10 folks that you have on regularly. That builds the community deeper beyond just, I came on, I made my message, my pitch slap, I just want to grow, and I want to just go out and learn public speaking, so I'll get on every different live stream I can. No, we've taken it and said, okay, we're going to concentrate on a group of people and grow them individually and together. That's very important, important aspect of live streaming that I think is missed, because so many people like podcasts want to have the big names, they want to have the important people, and they don't think about the consistency of message over time, which we've built, I think, or you've built really in particular, Don. Over time, it was very broad, and it's narrowed down, and then it's built, deeper in that message, if that makes sense.
That's very astute. And, it brings to mind that at a certain point, what you used to think was important because that's how you were conditioned, which is numbers. How many people are in the audience? How many comments? How many likes? How many this? And I look at it where it really distills down to your 7 best friends. I know the world is a much better place for having Kelly in it, and just knowing that she's there, or Harvey, or everybody else. And there are times when people come and stay and go and move on and whatever, and that's important. I mean, you wouldn't want to have a high school that no one ever graduated from, but they do come back for reunions once in a while, or they stay in touch. And I think the other element is all you need is enough people to make everybody better. And at a certain point, you'll outrun your supply lines, right? If you brought 40 people on the show, everybody would have about a minute. If you brought 40 people in the group, it wouldn't exist because not enough people. But when you really focus on whatever and whoever you have that makes you better all the time for being around them individually, but even more collectively, whether Khan's buying a house in Greece, you also live their life with them. It's not just, how much can we learn? How much can we grow? Because time is on our side if we're on the right track with the right people. And if you've been on a trip with 4 or 5 couples and you're having a ball, you hope it never ends, and you allow people to provide for you situations that they are good at. And it rounds it out to have a good blend. Someone strong in AI, someone strong in promotion. Collectively, we're all going to learn whatever we need to learn. And we'll do it better than we would have done on ourselves. And also have some validation, because people say, well, I tried what you did. Here's what I added to it, made all the difference in the world. And what always comes out of it, whether it's Beverly or anybody else, I always have 15 minutes for anybody. Right? So if you haven't figured it out here, give me a call. I'll share it with you. I'll send you a link. And that's what instills people to take the higher road. And, I think ultimately just having the saying, do no harm, goes 90% of the way. Right? So everything you say has good intention, purpose, and value. And if everybody's challenging themselves to be more of that, it helps everybody else be more than that, because when you're racing against faster people, you have to get faster.
Right.
If you're racing against slower people, you will slow down. It's just natural. Jason.
Yeah, and we're coming around the horn here. We're at that point. So want to tie it in, but a point that I wanted to make, and this came to me why through this conversation. I was thinking that deep roots grow strong trees, and strong trees bear wonderful fruit. And I think that's what we can do with live streaming. Now, we made great points, and we talked a lot about live streaming has so many benefits to do 1-off, 2-off, to get in front of people. One of my best friends, and he was my first client, actually says, Jason, you are your brand. You have to be in front of people. I'm a smart guy. I think I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm pretty educated. I'm pretty articulate. Except for today, I couldn't say a couple words. I share a lot of great knowledge, but I tell you what, my most engaged posts are when it's me. Yeah. When it's me talking, my videos, sharing these things, stuff like that, because people want to know who you are. And we've got plenty of sayings around that, but. So that has its own benefits, and we've talked a lot about that. But I do want to talk about like what you have all accomplished, and what we're accomplishing is these deep roots and this consistency, and having these live streams where people can find you. So even beyond the power of the live stream in and of itself, the strategy is so important, because people can find you and people can grow with you. That's so important. As we get older, we don't usually have mentors as much anymore. We tend to be the tip of the spear. And this builds community, which allows us to be together and to feel supported and to feel like, oh, we're part of something. And I think that's one of the biggest things about live stream, because it's not just a talking head, to go back to my earlier point. It's a conversation, and you can join that conversation. And that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, the vehicle allows for that, because taking the physical world or traditional world, let's say you had 7 cohorts. Well, in order to get together with them, you're going to have to meet somewhere. Now, how many people are going to be able to meet every Tuesday at 9 a.m.? Not that many. And how many people are going to be rushing to get there and rushing to get away from there, which makes an hour meeting a 3-hour event. So it's the opportunity we have, and understanding it's not good enough to be on your own alone, because you'll never scale, and you'll never be able to draft off of anybody and have people draft off of you. So I think it's a generosity, and there has to be a sense of trust in what you don't know yet. Right. A belief in things that aren't there yet, but could be there, and you could make it happen. And I think that sense of accomplishment, because so many people have given up on themselves. So many people have figured their best days are over. They've been marginalized, they've been put off, and all they can look at is what used to be. And all of a sudden you get another wave, because it lends itself. I mean, we're over a certain age. 82% of the people on LinkedIn are between 18 and 34. Nobody is between 18 and 34 in our group or even on our show. But what it says, out of 1 billion people, there's probably a good percentage over 50, and they're looking for a home, and they're looking for people like them who understand them. And I'd have a hard time sitting in a group of 20-year-olds, and I know they probably have a hard time sitting with me, even though there probably shouldn't be an issue. But that's the perception you have going in.
Right.
And why deal with perception? Why deal with anybody who is counter to what you want or what you want to do? You know, some people block your way, other people support your way. Kelly, I know we're coming up on top of the hour. We could have made 3 hours out of this.
Easy peasy. And I'm sure we'll all talk in some way or another after this, because we always do. I mean, I know Dave and I will be texting today because it always happens after we do a show. But just kind of to wrap and to go on what you were saying, Don, I think, you know, in an age group of more mature humans, not saying we're all like mature, but we're older. Certainly being in a place following 2020, the reason I got into live streaming alone was being laid off and not being able to get hired, and realizing how much of my personal identity was wrapped up into my career, and not knowing what to do with myself, and feeling not good enough, all the things, and not feeling living in my purpose. And I was led to live stream, and I believe it has so changed my life. I had no expectation going into it. I had no goal other than it was making me show up for myself, and for others, and then feeling the connection with others, because that, you know, one of the biggest epidemics that is happening is loneliness. And this is such a way to help with that. So for me, having no plan when I started of what I was doing with it, what I was going to gain from it, other than having myself show up and be present, I have grown in an immense way internally, spiritually, connecting with others. I have relationships with people that I never could have imagined. I've gotten clients out of it, just everything completely organically. And it was all just because I took a leap of faith of something that, I'm not gonna lie, it scared me. Live sounds terrifying. And I was afraid of being judged. I mean, again, being honest. And I think we all suffer those things hearing live stream, because it sounds scary, but it's just a conversation. And when you're surrounded by people that are providing an environment that is safe and supported, boy, there's nothing more beautiful. And that's a community, and that's why I'm still here, and why it will always hold a very, very special place for me. So I think I will leave it there this time around as we wrap, and I will wrap like I always do, is to remind everyone to go out and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
That's always beautiful. Never don't like hearing that. Actually enjoy it so much. Dave?
Yeah, I'll just quickly end on the idea of confidence. Live stream gives you an opportunity in a very safe environment to build your confidence. Building on what you said there, Kelly, is we get this jittery feeling of, oh my gosh, it's live and I can't make a mistake. We've mentioned community. It's a conversation amongst friends, and if you can feel comfortable, you're going to build your confidence. If I look back, and I have a couple of times, at my first podcast, my first show with Don, or with you, Kelly, gosh, those messages really didn't come through because I wasn't confident, because I was thinking of, oh, is somebody going to judge me? I can tell you now, if I were to come back on a show, I'd be like, I don't care anymore, because I'm confident. I'm ready to go. This is my message. I'm not trying to sell something anymore. It's just the message. And that's the important piece that I've found from live stream. I've tried to hint at it a little bit here in the last hour, is the confidence that you build over doing something. And you alluded to it too, Don, is when we practice something. My daughter hates hearing this every day, is practice, practice, practice. But the more of these we've done, the better we get. And that's the same thing with any podcast, any public speaking, marketing, sales. It takes practice to do. And this is a very easy, opportune network of people, of technology that allows you to grow. And what are we here but to grow into who we were not? I'll go back to Debbie Clement again, Don, from one of my first shows with you. Being a butterfly, you got to change through the process to become who you want to be tomorrow. And I'll just leave it at that.
No, that's terrific. Jason, you'll have final words.
Yeah, I have something I want to say, but I'll try to make it short. So this is a safe space. That's the beauty of this. We talked about being nervous and stuff, but the reality is that this is a safe space. I'm not in a room. We're in 4 different states. But I feel connected to you all because of the relationship we've built. But it's a safe space. I don't have to worry about what if there's a lull in the conversation? Do I have to look away or whatever? It's because we all support each other. But sometimes some humans have issues with that interconnection with others. But what I'll say is this is a great place to build that muscle. But here's what I want to say. This is the Jason platform for me. Go out and smile at someone. Go out and say hello to somebody. Connect with your fellow humans in your community. It's an amazing thing. I had and I'll try to make this really quick. I know we're over the hour. Yesterday I was at a thrift store looking at records. A guy came up. He was probably in his mid-30s, younger than me, and he was like, "There's only 3 little bins," and he's like, "Oh, you done with these bins already?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. Yeah, you go ahead." So he's flipping through the records. I found what I wanted. I stepped away. I came back. I was pretty close to there, and I was looking at some of the stuff I picked up, and he stopped and he goes, "Hey, did you get anything good?" And I was like, "Oh, I got the Stevie Wonder, and I got this," and he's like, "Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I got some good stuff," and we made that connection, and that's so missing in our community. So that's kind of my soapbox. Go out, say hi, connect with the humans. Live streaming is a great place to work on that and to build that muscle because it all comes together. So there's benefits to everything.
Well, that's a beautiful example. And I think
something before you end, Don. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I love y'all. I mean, y'all know it. But Jason, I love you even more today because you mentioned Max Headroom, Talking Heads, and now records. I mean,
well, and that's the beauty of it. We don't know what we don't know, and you only know when you ask. And if you ask in a positive way, what can I help you with? Or is there something, little things that you're happy to do, and you close yourself off from other people and yourself when you decide, well, I'm not comfortable. Or like, Dave said, he went over to that gentleman, introduced himself. That person didn't know Dave. He wasn't going to go over and introduce themselves. And the last thing you want to do is say, oh, I should have talked to them when I had the chance, or I should have done this, but because I felt I would be this or that. And, you got to, we always talk about authenticity is key. No one wants to know what you could be. Everybody wants to know who you are.
Yeah.
Right. And people try to put on a face or a style or something. It's not them. With that said, we need to close it up only because of consideration for the audience and everybody else. We could be here forever and they will have a marathon session. So go out, prosper, enjoy, and come back. And hopefully we can all continue to ratchet up together.